Oh, hello there. I'm just practicing my magic. Hopefully it can help me to get my head around and understand this amplifier a little bit better. So I'm just going to make this cup disappear. Ready? 1, 2, 3. That didn't work. Welcome to Pursuit of Perfect Systems review for the McIntosh MC152 stereo power amplifier. McIntosh was started in New York in 1956, and the factory they used then is the factory they use now. The business was built on one man's vision to build a better amplifier. That man was Thank McIntosh. The company has made some legendary amplifiers, obviously, from then until now. One in particular is the MC152 tube amplifier, which has been in production for over 50 years, and you can still buy that today. And personally, I would really like to listen and review one or two of those amplifiers. Hint hint. The company takes great care in its manufacturing quality. Most of its products are made in-house, including their auto-former output transformers. The blue watt meters on McIntosh products are legendary throughout the industry, and in McIntosh's eyes they are a sign of quality. McIntosh now make a full range of products: CD players, streamers, preamplifiers, speakers, AV products, even a wireless speaker, and they have won countless awards across the industry press. McIntosh is now part of a larger group of companies. There are some big name brands in this group: Sonos Faber, Audio Research, Samico, Wardia, but the company has decided to keep the McIntosh name for its recognition of quality. Okay, personal desirability. McIntosh is, a big name within the hi-fi industry. It's a name that everybody knows. Everybody's aware of the logo. Everybody knows the name, and I think everybody's familiar and aware of those blue meters and the blue colouring, blue and black, obviously colouring. Personally, I don't think I've ever heard a McIntosh product before today. I don't think they've really been at the shows that I've been to. Otherwise, I'm sure I would have, sought out those rooms and been really keen to hear McIntosh. And to be honest, when the opportunity arose for me to test this out and review this product, I literally jumped at the chance. Okay, let's talk about the design of this amplifier. And obviously, let's start with, I think what is key with this amplifier, and that is the kind of legendary McIntosh look. We've got the blue VU meters on the front, the black kind of glass rear, and that just kind of unique McIntosh look, which they've kept in this product. Even though this is obviously the entry-level amplifier for McIntosh, they've kept the kind of legendary look. The actual amplifier is a slimline design, and it's slimline on purpose. That is all part of the overall design, obviously, for this amplifier. Looking at the front, we've got kind of two buttons. One is power and one is to control, obviously, the VU meters, and they actually feel reassuringly clunky, reassuringly well made. I actually think they're nice to look at as well. One thing to point out is that because both buttons are literally identical, you're bound to at some stage go to turn the VU meters on or off and turn the power off by mistake. I'm not saying that happened to me, obviously, but I'm saying that's quite a possibility that you would do that. Now, with the VU meters enabled, you get that lovely blue glow, and that is really nice. It doesn't matter what time, whether it's daytime or it's a pitch-black cinema room. The blue glowing VU meters is really nice. But personally, I actually turn those off. Better than that is just the McIntosh kind of logo, which glows green. Now, the first time I actually sat down to listen to this amplifier, I kind of looked at the McIntosh logo glowing in green, and I kind of giggled to myself. I thought that was a really lovely thing. It was kind of like quite a touching moment for me, really, to have like a product of McIntosh's in my system for review. It makes you feel like a little bit of a kid, and I actually thought to myself I would never tire of sitting down and looking at that logo. Now, stopping there, this is where I've got one major gripe, and this may come across a little bit too strong in how I'm going to say this, but on the front, when the amp's in standby, we've got a little red LED in the middle, which tells us the amplifier's got power, right? Which to be fair, okay, kind of makes sense. Now, when you turn the amplifier on, you get the lovely green glow of McIntosh, You have the beautiful blue VU meters either on or off, as you prefer. And then that red LED stays on. And that, you wouldn't think that would make any difference. But when you're sitting there in a darkened room, the McIntosh green logo actually looks like a hologram, kind of glowing in the middle of nothing. And it is absolutely stunning to see. But it's completely killed and completely ruined by that red LED just above it. It completely ruins the illusion of just kind of McIntosh glowing, kind of like a hologram, like hovering in kind of free air in the kind of black space. And I can only assume they didn't test this out in a darkened room at all. And I can only make decisions. Actually, what idiot decided to leave the red LED on when the power is on, because there's just absolutely no need for it. And actually, really, when you think about it, an LED, a basic red LED in the middle of an amplifier, is actually very old school. It's actually very basic. And why didn't they just put something nice, like, you know, like a row of LEDs or something inside the VU meter that just kind of glows like a subtle blue or a subtle red or something when the amplifier is in standby, so you know it's got power? How much nicer would that be than just a stupid red LED right in the middle, which really doesn't add anything? All it does is takes away. And you know, I appreciate maybe we need to know that it's got power for safety reasons, etc. But there are much smarter ways to do it than what they've done in this amplifier. I'm sure it wouldn't cost them any more money to do it. Or they could just have it quite simply that when you turn the amplifier on, the red LED goes off, and then that would, you know, you'd know the amplifier's on because it's lit up in green on the front. So I've got to have a little rant about this, and I've got to get it out of my system, because that front is absolutely beautiful, and that green McIntosh logo glowing is absolutely beautiful, and it's kind of, it's completely ruined by that red LED. So I'm sorry to harp on about such a basic and minor thing, but McIntosh, that is a mistake for something that's so good. That is a mistake. So rant out the way, moan out the way, let's kind of move on. So looking at kind of the rest of the amplifier, the front is really, really nice and speaks for itself, kind of, you know, kind of cult and classic look. The rest of the amplifier, the actual build quality feels very good and feels very decent. However, it kind of reminds you of more of a, I'm trying to say like an Arkham level product. That's probably you know, I don't know if that's right or wrong. You know, the kind of the metal or the steel or whatever it is they've used for this is very thick and feels well made, but kind of there's nothing lavish about the rest of the amplifier. It's more just functional, really. And I think that is part of the design of this amplifier. This has been designed as a small system amplifier. It's been designed for either a small full system, or for maybe a set of rear channel speakers for a much bigger system. That would be some serious system if you're running this just for your rear channels. But either way, I think they've designed this amplifier to go in a rack of sorts. So either like a full-on rack, or just like a home AV rack or a furniture cabinet, because it's slimline design, you know, so technically all you're going to see is this, or all you're going to see maybe is this. So they've put no attention to detail for me beyond here, really, for the looks. On top, we've got kind of the writing. It shows the, you know, the transformer, and it shows the autoformers and a little bit of technical detail on top, which you can see in the videos if you look through. That's quite a nice touch. Obviously explains about how much power it's got on the low distortion figures and stuff, and you know, that's a nice touch to me. That is nice. But apart from that, there is nothing really going on. It actually reminds you more of, say, like a medium end product as opposed to a, you know, a high end product. So it's not necessarily a complaint. It's more an observation. So in theory, you'd rather, you know, I personally would rather them spend less here and more inside. You know, you'd hope that is the case. I mean, I couldn't find any internal pictures of this amplifier, which is a shame, because I would really have loved to see the inside. In the actual manual for this amplifier, there's a few basic pictures, but they're crap. They're black and white. You can't really see anything. But looking through the grills, which are only small, looking through the grills, some of the cabling, it looks like, maybe from the transformer to maybe the main amplifier board here, it's like kind of cotton covered. And when do you ever see that? You know, cotton's there for you know, possibly dielectric properties. I would think more for kind of mechanical properties to stop any vibration and isolation and stuff. But when do you ever see that? You never ever see that inside of amplifiers. And to me, that's kind of like like a cables, you know, it's what people do with cables, kind of tweaky sort of thing to try and improve kind of the sound quality from cables and stuff. So seeing that inside an amplifier, wow, you know, that's fantastic. If it's for another reason, you know, I'll fully accept that. But you know, you look inside, you know, a little bit of an attention to detail, maybe that an audiophile was built this amplifier, as opposed to looking at the casework, you kind of think, well, actually maybe the accountant's got involved here, and kind of they've saved some serious money by making this quite plain and basic. One thing to bear in mind, because the amplifier is slim, don't think that it's light. This amplifier weighs a ton. It's about 34 kilos. It's really heavy, which I'm saying now as I'm about to turn the amplifier around. So looking at the rear of the amplifier, it's a simple affair, and again, kind of the layout and construction is actually quite akin to the Arcam P49 amplifier, which you can see the review obviously on the channel. But if we look at a few things to bear in mind, the binding posts, which are kind of a McIntosh staple really across different products. As you go up to their more expensive amplifiers, these actually get better. Now, if you look, I managed to undo that. When I first tried to use an amplifier, I could not undo these at all. Now, obviously with the box, they normally provide like a plastic spanner. So, I would suggest with this amplifier, investing in one of these, and it's the only time I've ever needed a spanner with any audio product. So this is an old school 1.5 AF sized spanner that I just happen to have, and that's the perfect size to lock and unlock the binding post. So they feel very strong, they feel very hard wearing and decent quality, but they get very stiff and stuck. The rest of the rear, very simple affair. Obviously your input mode, balanced or unbalanced. Obviously pay attention to that, because when I first put the amplifier in, that must have got switched across to balanced, and I was actually getting still very good sound, but that kind of lackluster underperforming sound that you get from that. So that's not going to turn the sound on and off. That's literally just going to give it the right gain for the input. So we've got our inputs here. I don't know, connections feel decent enough quality. They don't feel the best, to be honest. These don't feel Luxman quality, being perfectly honest, but they feel good enough, and providing you're not pulling these around too much, I'm sure they'll last you a really long time. You know, everything else feels decent, but if I'm honest, it feels a little bit, you know, like the accountants kind of come in and things could possibly be a little bit better here. But I'm not, you know, I do not want to run this amplifier down far from it. Overall, you know, a lovely looking front to this amplifier. The back is okay, you know, it's not bad. I just don't think it's great. I say it's certainly not lavish, but there's nothing, you know, the front I think would possibly make you buy it. You know, obviously if you like the amplifier sound, but there's nothing beyond that that would make you not buy this amplifier. There's just nothing beyond this, to me, that would make you buy it. Okay, let's talk about the specification of this amplifier. Now, I've got notes obviously for this, because there's a lot going on inside this amplifier, and I want to give you kind of the bare bones of it. What I would suggest is go on the McIntosh website and look at the manual for this, because in the manual there's quite, you know, a detailed description of the different technologies that McIntosh use inside this amplifier, and you'll actually find those same technologies used throughout the full range. The basic specifications is 150 watts per channel. 8 ohms, 4 ohms and 2 ohms. And because McIntosh uses a patented audio autoformer transformer for each channel, the amplifier is able to deliver the full current or the full power to any speaker, so a 2 ohm, a 4 ohm or an 8 ohm load. So that's a completely different way of working to most amplifiers. That's a little bit unusual. I mean, if you know McIntosh, it won't be, but for anybody that doesn't know McIntosh, that's a slightly different way of doing it. But McIntosh designed it this way to keep the distortion levels down and to ensure that this amplifier is going to drive the speakers properly and correctly regardless of their impedance. McIntosh amplifiers have their power assurance system, and as part of that is kind of different categories obviously within the amplifier. One of them is the autoformers, which I mentioned just before. The second thing is power guard. Power guard is a circuit within the amplifier which is constantly monitoring the input and the output levels, and it will adjust the input level to prevent clipping and prevent distortion. So it protects the speakers and improves your sound quality. Now, it seems to do that. I mean, obviously it's got a power guard LED on the front, and that's not been on once the whole time I've had the amplifier, and I've had it turned up loud. But what I noticed with the amplifier is it doesn't compress at all, and even in certain songs where you would normally expect some compression, and you expect that to be within the master, there's no compression with this amplifier, and I'll talk a bit more about that in sound, but it's very interesting that that works. and that is working well. Now another technology within the amplifier is Sentry Monitor. Now Sentry Monitor is a fuseless monitoring system monitoring the current of the amplifier, and it's basically a protection system. Which the last one is Thermal Track, which is trademarked, and thermal monitoring, and that is to do with the output transistors. Now this amplifier range has the latest output transistors, which run much cooler and have much lower distortion. So this actually amplifier is designed with to generate a minimal amount of heat. Okay, let's talk about the live with ability of this amplifier. Now this is pretty much for my setting, you know, a dark room and a cinema room where, you know, potentially might need to have multiple amplifiers in a small space, where a room that gets hot because you've got a projector and other electronics in there. This is potentially the perfect amplifier, you know, for that setup. I mean, obviously being black is a good start. Not generating heat is a phenomenal thing, absolutely brilliant, and yeah, something that you wouldn't expect to get with a really high performance Class AB amplifier such as this amplifier. You know, the front dials, the VU meters, whether you have them on or off, lovely to look at. You know, and as I said before about the McIntosh green logo that glows, with the exception of that stupid red LED, is absolutely lovely to live with. You just, you know, occasionally you look over at it when you pay attention to it, and you know, it just lights you up. You know, it fills you with, you know, fills you with happiness and joy. I know that's sad, but it's exactly what it does. It's got a very simple and clean, quick on-off cycle. The amplifier sounds good pretty much straight away. Maybe half hour, 45 minutes to sound its best, but the amplifier sounds good straight away. Now, something to keep the eco people friendly is, you know, if this amplifier is not generating a ton of heat, then it's not wasting a ton of electricity. So I haven't got any figures for how much electricity or energy this actually uses, but you know, it doesn't take a lot of common sense to work out if it's not wasting loads of heat, then it's not wasting loads of electricity as well. Because of the nature of the design of the amplifier, because it's slimline, because it doesn't generate a lot of heat, the actual flexibility of installation of this amplifier is much greater than most amplifiers. Now, one thing to bear in mind is the size. This is a deep amplifier and it's quite wide, so make sure you check your dimensions if you're going to put this amplifier into like an existing rack, because it is very deep. Okay, then let's talk about the sound quality and the performance of this amplifier. So I'll give you the choice. What would you like first, the bad points or the good points? Okay, the bad points. Let's start with them. Anybody got anything to say? I didn't think so. Okay, then let's get on to the good points. Now, there's a lot of good points, so please bear with me. And I've even made some notes. I didn't want to miss anything out. So the first thing you'll notice, well, the first thing I noticed when I put this amplifier in, is the clarity from this amplifier. You know, the whole musical presentation is clean and clear. The mid-range in particular, you know, it carries its own space. It's in its own space, and it's crisp and clean and clear. Now that extends right the way through to the top into the treble and right the way down into the bass. And I think it's the first time, you know, I've seen an amplifier specification of really low distortion, 0.005, and that transpire into the actual sound you get. So yeah, the sound is really clean, and there is masses of clarity to everything within the soundstage. Talking about, you know, the soundstage. Now, if I said this was the first time I felt I had a soundstage from my system, that would be kind of taking it a little bit too far. But at the same time, it wouldn't totally be false. It's, you know, I've had some really good, you know, really good products in the system. The system sounds very good, and you get a lovely soundstage off it. But I've always thought it's like a 2.5D soundstage, and never quite a 3D soundstage. And when I put this amplifier in, again, that kind of low noise gives the system more space, and it gives the presentation more space to work in. It's a bit of an unusual way of describing it, but the song I noticed it with first was Dave Brubeck Take 5, where you've got the drummer to the left and you've got the piano player to the right. Now, with this amplifier, that presentation, the drummer felt kind of forward in that space, by comparison to the piano player, which felt backwards in that space. So to me, that's giving a kind of a 3D presentation of what, you know, kind of what the, you know, what the artists, what they've kind of tried to create there in terms of like an actual sound stage. And I've heard that before in other systems, and you get a bit of depth and a bit of this and there, but it never quite has that kind of authenticity. It actually sounds like a piano player, kind of backwards in the sound stage. And I've never had that before, but with this amplifier, that is what I was getting in that song. And it's not only, obviously only that song, it's lots of other songs where kind of things are layered better, layered beyond the speakers better. And not only they layered beyond the speakers better, they carry and they still maintain their authenticity. And that's really important for me. So, I mean, as soon as something sounds a little bit vague or weak or kind of, you know, not in balance with the rest of the sound, then that magic is gone. Precision is another word I've written down here. Now, everything in the soundstage, it kind of goes a little kind of hand in hand with clarity, really, is that everything's precise. You know, your mid-range is precise, your bass is very precise, your treble is precise, your soundstage is precise, not analytical but precise. Everything's organised and layered correctly and properly. That is really lovely to listen to, really enjoyable to listen to, where things have their own kind of precise space within a soundstage, your own precise space and stage within the layering of the music as well. Really, really enjoyable, fantastic to listen to. I've put down this amplifier is smooth. Now you'll often read that McIntosh amplifiers are warm. Now obviously, you know, maybe old ones are, but I wouldn't say this amplifier is warm, but I would definitely say it's smooth. And you can play this amplifier really, really loud and it stays composed, it stays smooth, and it stays balanced. And that's so nice to listen to. It's so nice to be able to turn your system up really loud and not worry that, you know, other systems and other amplifiers, you know, they may have like a, you know, a certain point and a certain level where you know you can play it to that point, and as you go beyond that, the system's going to start to lose it, or the balance is going to start to you know, to go. And it's quite easy to blame a lot of things there, but when you have a really high quality amplifier like this in your system, you can just get louder and louder and louder, and that balance and that control and that precision and that clarity all stays the same. And this amplifier actually sounds better, I feel, turned up. So the more you turn this amplifier up, the kind of, you know, more eventful and the bigger and the kind of more alive your system sounds, and that same composure and balance all remains perfectly, you know, intact. And when you start looking at the design of this amplifier, that, you know, the technologies and stuff they've put in it and the way they've designed it, that is what it's designed to do, and that is what it does. It does it absolutely brilliantly. I've put down grain free. Grain free doesn't really cover it. There's literally, it just kind of goes hand in hand with smooth. There's no grain, there's no brittleness, there's no harshness. You know, the timing, you know, again, that's all part of clarity and precision and stuff. It's all timing. You know, everything is just literally spot on. Everything's layered properly. Timing is brilliant. Precision is brilliant. And I said it's kind of harsh and grain free. Transparency. You know, you think an amplifier has a certain sound and certain characteristics and stuff until you make changes elsewhere. And part of this review process, you know, I made some Direct Live videos, so I was messing around with Direct Live and other bits and pieces. And for a couple of hours, the sound of my system seemed broken, absolutely broken, because I've been messing around with Direct Live, changed a few things, and I kind of lost the magic. So that made me very aware of just how transparent this amplifier is. This is going to give you a very transparent portrayal of what what comes before it. So yeah, paying attention to source, etc., etc., is always, you know, extremely important. You know, looking at it the other way around, you know, the actual sound from the system with this amplifier in it is transparent. You don't pay attention to the system, you don't pay attention to the speakers. The sound doesn't come from the speakers, it just comes from in front of you, and it comes from all around you at times, and it's completely enveloping. And that actually moves nicely on to the next point I've made, which is projection. Now, if you want a song that's a brilliant demonstrator for projection, is the Madonna Immaculate Collection, Vogue. Now, in that song, to be honest, throughout the whole song, there's layered sound effects and layered singing and instruments from literally just behind the speakers right the way out to the listening position and behind you. And done correctly, that song is outstanding, and in the way it projects sound and the way sounds are put in a 3D soundstage right the way out to the listener. Now I've had that brilliant with other amplifiers. The Bryston does that phenomenally well, but this amplifier takes it to a whole nother level. Back to what we said before about the clarity and the precision and the space in the soundstage just means there's now bigger space and bigger gaps between the individual elements of that song, and every part of it's cleaner and crisper and clearer and easier to pick out, and yet it stays as one cohesive musical whole throughout the whole thing. And it's big and it's full and it's brilliant, and it's absolutely brilliant, and that you would have to hear that to believe it. Now I've poked down like resolution, and all these things kind of all go hand in hand, but you feel like with this amplifier, you know, there's detail there, there's, you know, there's resolution there. And resolution can sometimes mean like transient clarity and edge to things, and you know, sometimes that comes at the expense of an etched sound or an edgy sound and stuff like that. Not at all. That's back to what I said before. The sound from this amplifier is smooth and it's clean and it's clear. So if you've got a lot of detail, if you've got a lot of micro and macro details combined with a smooth sound, that is the winner. That is the one, isn't it? That is what we all want, really. You want tons of detail, but not too analytical. You want resolution, but you don't want etched. You want detail and you want clarity and you want, you know, life and richness in your music, but you don't want grain and you don't want harshness and you don't want brittleness, you know, as the expense of all those positives. So, right, so there's one slight negative for the sound, and this is purely a personal thing for me. I was listening to this amplifier, really overjoyed at the quality of the sound that I was getting, and you know, and I would already kind of really love this amplifier sound. But the longer you live with something, or the longer you use something for, you know, the faults and the flaws, you know, they always present themselves eventually. And I remember sitting there listening to it thinking, not that it's a flaw, I just remember thinking I personally would prefer if it just had a little bit more of a fleshed out sound, if the sound was just a little bit richer and a little bit fuller, to make things, you know, kind of give it more of a human factor. Like if you listen to my voice now, it's kind of, you know, deep and husky, and it's, you know, and sometimes hi-fi everything can be a touch lean for me, and that to me just ruins the believableness of it. So I went to work with the usual isolation products that I use. So I placed, you know, 4 underneath like I always do, paying attention to put them underneath where the auto formers are within the chassis, and also one on top, which is above where the main isolation, main transformer is, obviously for the amplifier, and that was it. That done the business, like it does for most products. That added just that little bit of fullness and richness that I wanted, but it didn't lose any of the magic. So I didn't lose the clarity or the resolution or the space or the sound stage. If anything, it possibly enhanced that a little bit as well. So with those products used with this amplifier, then I was getting, you know, a really, really phenomenal sound. Okay, conclusion for this amplifier. Right, I think when McIntosh got together, you know, and they was designing this range of amplifiers, and in particular this model, I think they must have got all their bods together, and they probably started brainstorming and making notes about what they wanted an amplifier to do, and what they, you know, how they wanted the amplifier to sound, and what they wanted to do, and how they wanted it to be. And they probably started making notes like, you know, slimline, you know, generate no heat, sound amazing. And they probably made this massive long list, and they probably looked at it and thought, bloody hell, how are we going to achieve that? So they got all their engineering bods in, and they started to look at it, and that wasn't enough. So they called on all the top magicians, like, I don't know, David Blaine and maybe Dynamo, and definitely Paul Daniels. Not a lot. He would have come in, and they would have tried to add a little bit of magic, obviously, to the formula, to try and achieve this. And that's obviously the reference to the magic at the beginning of the review. And I still don't think that was enough. So I personally think they pulled in Donald Trump and got him in, and because he knows how to make the impossible possible, doesn't he? So, and the result is this amplifier, and this kind of, I dare say, range of amplifiers from McIntosh. And you know, when you look at it, when you listen to it, and spend some time with it, you realise they absolutely nailed it. They absolutely nailed it. I mean, they've managed to create a Class AB amplifier that sounds this good, that generates nearly no heat. Literally, I would have said no heat, other than the fact that it was a hot day yesterday, and as I touched the amplifier, I couldn't believe it. It actually felt warm above the grills. It actually felt warm for the first time. But that was probably 7 hours after after being on for 7 hours and played loud for maybe 5 hours of those. So generate a small amount of heat, and I would say I would have said no heat, from a really high quality, brilliant sounding slimline amplifier that's really flexible with where you can place it. You can place it in like a low small TV cabinet, bearing in mind obviously its actual dimension. So they've nailed it. They've absolutely nailed it. They really have. This is a great amplifier. I love this amplifier. It's a great amplifier. It fits perfectly into the system as I use it, into like a dark cinema room. Fits perfectly into that. It actually powers the KEF reference speakers perfectly. This actually seems like the perfect amplifier for them. The perfect amount of power, the perfect amount of clarity and low noise to kind of bring out, start to bring out the best in those very high quality speakers. And to me, they've been really clever with it. It's going to work with that kind of clarity and kind of soundstage and rich character and smooth sound, yet detailed and exciting and giving a sound a sense of theatre. It's going to work with a load of speakers. It's going to work well with lots and lots of speakers. I can't see there being any issues with matching this at the moment. It's just kind of get a great speaker, stick this amp on it. It's going to sound great. That is personally how I feel, and that is I think part of the McIntosh design philosophy. Is this is going to sound great with loads of speakers, regardless of their impedance and stuff. It's match the power to what you need for your speaker, and kind of off you go. So looking at the price of this amplifier, it's £5,995. It's obviously had a price increase since Brexit. I think this amplifier was originally released kind of late 2015, so it's been out obviously a while, and that seemed like a lot of money for a lot of people. It's at that investment sort of price point, isn't it, where for a lot of people it's going to be a big investment, possibly one that's might see them for their life. Can you marry this amplifier? 100% yes you can. This is a very easy one. You'll be proposing to this one pretty quickly, I can assure you. But at that price point, there's a massive amount of competition out there. So you can look at it in a sense, this is the baby. This is the entry level of McIntosh power amplifiers, and it's 5,000, best part of £6,000. But when you actually think about it, you get exactly the same technology in this. All the kind of power assurance technologies that I spoke about in the specifications section, the auto formers, the really high quality big transformer. It's the same technologies that goes throughout the amplifier range, right up into the £50,000 kind of 2 kilowatt monoblocks that they make. So actually, when you flip that around, you think, well, actually I'm getting kind of all that technology for a much cheaper price, obviously, than than £50,000. So yeah, I suppose in some ways, if you look at it from a certain angle, it could potentially be a bargain that you're getting kind of that quality and that sound quality, and that McIntosh quality and reliability for this price point. Price aside, this amplifier goes in the great category. It goes in the special category. And just to remind you what those, what is the definition of something that's great and something that's special. So something's great, something special is when you put it in your system and it changes your system. It takes your system to a place it's not been before. It kind of elevates the quality of the sound from that system. And that's exactly what this system did, this amplifier did for me in my system. Bearing in mind the quality of the amplifiers I've been listening to recently, this amplifier still did that in terms of clarity, in terms of precision, in terms of soundstage, in terms of projection, in terms of kind of musical involvement. It did all that, amongst its peers. It had that effect. It makes you want to listen to the system more. Not just more songs, it makes you want to listen again and again. It kind of pulls you back and makes you want to listen to your system more. And it makes you want to listen to more music, and this amplifier makes you want to listen to, I think, a larger variety of music as well, because it all sounds really good. And as I say, McIntosh absolutely nailed it with this amplifier. It is fantastic. I really, really love it. I love it. I love it. It's perfect for me. It's brilliant. I love it. It's brilliant. I love it. It's great. It's brilliant. I love it. I really love it. And the only problem with reviewing products like this is that when they have to go back, because they leave a giant rectangular shaped hole in your life. To give this amplifier a rating, and you know, it's a very easy double thumbs up, and it's the same story. If I had more thumbs, I'll be putting them up. And would I buy this with my own money? And that is a very easy yes. So McIntosh have been in business since 1956. You know, they make phenomenal products. This is a phenomenal amplifier. However, I think they've got one thing wrong. Very wrong, in fact. And that is the name. I don't think it should be McIntosh. It actually should be McIntosh, because this amplifier really is outstanding, and I think they should have made themselves McIntosh, because you know, their products are worthy of royalty, I suppose, is one way of looking at it.